What is up, guys? So I'm back here with another video this week, and in today's video I really want to walk you through this over here, and this is my language bookshelf. So I really wanted to make this video for a very long time, mainly because I've been getting a lot of questions on my YouTube and as well as my Instagram page, basically around books that I use to study all of these 5 languages. So right now I'm currently studying Vietnamese, I'm studying Chinese, I'm studying Korean, I'm studying Spanish, and lastly Japanese as well. So if you guys are curious about what books I'm using for the 5 different languages that I'm studying right now, then be sure to keep on watching. Okay, so the very first language that I want to talk about is Vietnamese, and you guys probably already know that I am Vietnamese Canadian, so my parents came from Ho Chi Minh City a very long time ago. So their ability to speak in Vietnamese is obviously way fluent, and that is the language that I speak at home. So for me, I really didn't want to buy any beginner books in Vietnamese because I can basically speak it right now at a basic and good conversational intermediate level. So I really wanted my Vietnamese right now to get up to a upper intermediate to an advanced level, because for me, I think Vietnamese is a really important kind of aspect of my life, but I do have some stories and some kind of interesting ways to learn 2 languages at the same time. So I just took the books off my bookshelf because I want to show you guys relatively what the stack looks like. So these are all the Vietnamese books I have, and most of them came directly from Vietnam. So you can probably tell if you are Vietnamese, you probably read this, but basically some of them are either translations from Chinese to Vietnamese, no English at all. Some of them are also very like business related, or even just like short stories. So I got most of these, if not all, from Vietnam. My dad actually went to Vietnam last year, so when he did, I asked another aunt in Vietnam to actually buy me these books, so I'm really grateful for that. What's really important when I buy books like this is that I really requested for her, my aunt actually in Vietnam, to find books that would help me learn Chinese as well. So going around the idea about learning 2 languages at the same time, I know other YouTubers have this style as well, but you know, for these ones too at least, these are basically like basic beginner books that you can use at a very easy level, I would say, to really translate from your Vietnamese to Chinese. And I requested this because at the time I was learning Chinese like very early stages, so my Chinese didn't go beyond like Mandarin Chinese. So basically I knew very basic stuff, and these are really great because it basically says self-study Chinese or 都好听话. Basically, in these 2 books, there's different contexts and scenarios and situations that you might want to use Chinese with a Vietnamese translation. Okay, so I don't want to walk through every single book here because there's a lot, and for me to provide links to actually buy these books, I don't know if you guys would be able to buy these books online. Maybe you would, but I don't know where to find them because I'm pretty sure my aunt got them at a very local bookstore in Vietnam. So okay, so after Vietnamese, I actually started to take Spanish classes in high school. And so Spanish classes were basically run from grade 9 up until grade 12 for me, so that's around 4 years of Spanish. And so for me, again, similar to Vietnamese, I'm not obviously like an expert, but when I hear conversations, I can kind of get pieces in here and there. So I think my Spanish was definitely not starting from zero. And so when I was looking for books to buy, obviously I didn't want to buy a whole set. I just kind of wanted to buy like a really basic one so I can kind of work from somewhere at least. And so I ended up getting this one here called Spanish Grammar and Practice. And so it's not necessarily teaching you beginner Spanish step by step, but it's just practice for you to either learn new vocabulary or relearn the same vocabulary, and just have like really good kind of examples to practice with. So yeah, this one is from Collins Publishing's here, and this is the only Spanish book I have right now. Spanish is not a target language for me right now, but it's obviously a language that I want to be fluent in at some point in my life. So having this book is really nice just so that I can kind of like review it back whenever I want to review it. And I also go on apps like Duolingo or Lingodeer when I want to kind of just study passively for Spanish. Okay, and so now we're going from English to Vietnamese to Spanish, and then after I graduated high school, I went through university pretty kind of stressed, I guess. I started studying Korean and learning Hangul in 2018, which is kind of quite the time ago. Yeah, so this here is the current stack I have for Korean. So obviously at the very top we have Korean stories, we have a children's book here, We also have a picture book that my friend Amy got me from Korea. And then I also have, funny enough, a recipe book. And then I also have Go Billy's Korean Made Simple. Okay, so in this stack, I think my favorite books that I've learned Korean so far, I would say essentially probably this one here is probably one of the top ones I have. And I say that because when you're learning Korean, a big part of it is vocabulary, like any other language. And so I really like it because in this book here, they have the Korean, and then they have the English. And then if you go past near the end here, there's basically a section for vocabulary. And then there's a section for questions about the story that you just read. So I think it's just a really good way to hit home with like trying to, one, understand the Korean language, two, figuring out words you don't know, and then three, putting that all into context of actually answering a question from that story. So if you're learning a story about like apples on a tree, and then you don't really know the word for apple, you can go to the vocabulary section and learn that apple means sagwa. And then in the question, they could basically ask you like, oh, so how many apples were in the tree? And so you can use that in a sentence. So I really like that kind of method. I think that is a really, really helpful method to study a language. Okay, so obviously when I first started learning Korean, I didn't just buy those books alone. I actually didn't buy a lot of those books when I first started, only because I had to learn Hangul, and then I really wanted to follow an easy to follow curriculum. And so a lot of you guys might know that I did follow Talk to Me in Korean and How to Study Korean.com. And a lot of those resources I didn't actually buy the book for. I went to the website. Luckily, I didn't need to buy an actual book because a lot of it was on PDFs that they have, or they had a podcast that you can learn online. And so I ended up printing out most of those things here, which is pretty insane because oh man, there's like so many binders. So I have, how many binders do we have here? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 binders here. So let me just walk you through these binders that I have. 3 of these binders, I believe, are Talk to Me in Korean. Level 1, 2, 3 here. Level 8 and level 9 that I haven't gotten to yet, because this one's probably a lot harder for me. 5, 6, and 7. And so these 2 binders are not How to Study Korean.com or Talk to Me in Korean, but they are in fact here. So the first one here is a PDF version of Korean Grammar and Use. So this one is the beginning to early intermediate version, and it contains all the points covered in topic levels 1 and 2, I think. So, okay, so the last binder I have is really, really awesome because a lot of you guys may or may not know, but I was actually planning to write the topic level 1 after my first year of learning Korean. I have basically a bunch of past exams for level 1 here. Okay, now we went from Vietnamese to Spanish to Korean, and then after I learned Korean for about 2.5 years, I was like, I want to study another language. So I picked up Chinese. Mandarin Chinese specifically, right here. So this is quite the stack. Check it out. First 3 books I have here are, I believe they are just short story books. So I picked these up in my city in Calgary, and they're all just like short stories. I think they're just really nice and really pretty cool to have just whenever I want to read up Chinese. The next 2 books I have here are ones that I've religiously used when I first learned Chinese, and they are the Learning Mandarin Chinese Characters Volume 1 and then Volume 2. But yeah, I just think it's really cool because again, they have the really big spots for you to write your Chinese. There's English translations, there's definitions. There's also a spot at the very end here where you can actually just write out questions and answer them. The next book I have for Chinese is actually a standard course book for HSK level 3, and I would really, really recommend HSK standard course only in the case that you are studying for HSK exam. These next books are fairly new to me. I haven't used them too much just yet because I think I just got these like last month, so they're pretty new. The first one I got here is called Short-Term Spoken Chinese. When I was studying for HSK 1 and HSK 2, all the books that I've had up to that point had pinyin. And I never had a book that didn't have pinyin in, so I always felt really dependent on pinyin, which is really bad because when you're hitting intermediate and advanced levels, you are not gonna have pinyin. And so I think these next set of books are really great because they don't actually have pinyin in most of them, which is really great. And so I am really thankful that these ones don't have pinyin here. And it's just really good because these are obviously like pretty intermediate levels and conversations, dialogues that you want to read and familiarize yourself to really understand basically conversation. And the last series I have here is from the Boy Chinese series. And I really like this one because, at least for the elementary level 2, there's a, what's called like a vocab book, and then there's a workbook, and then there is a textbook. Alright, so for Japanese, I did take a 3-month class learning basic hiragana, katakana, and basic conversational expressions. And for that class, I actually used a textbook called Maru Goto. And it's a very romanji heavy book. I wouldn't really recommend it for any self-learners, but I think it's pretty good for anyone who's in a class and kind of just wants that support. So Maru Goto was a pretty good book for me just because I had no Japanese exposure, so I'm really glad I took that class for sure. These next 4 books are JLPT prep books, and so let me just take them out and I'll show you guys what it's all about here. So this book here is the JLPT N5 vocab book. So it has about 1,000 necessary and essential vocabs that you need for the JLPT N5 exam. And I really like it because it has the English translation and then the Vietnamese translation, which is unreal. It's a pretty cool bookmark that you can use. Normally these books are pretty awesome because they have a checkbox kind of methodology here, because you can see beside every single vocab here, there is a little box where you can check out and make notes. The next book I got here is the JLPT N5 Grammar, Listening, and Vocabulary book. Really awesome because they have vocab, they have grammar, they have kanji, they have reading, and they also have listening in this book as well. And a lot of YouTubers say this is really awesome because it's pretty ideal for JLPT prep. There's a CD inside, and let me just open it up real quick. So you can basically see there's a section for you to answer questions, really awesome, and there's vocab on the left hand side. Another book that I ended up getting was the N4 book, so very similar to the N5 vocab book. This one has about 1,500 characters, Japanese characters, so pretty awesome as well. And no surprises here with a really nice layout. This last book I got was for the JLPT N4, N5 prep as well. Really awesome because basically it has 500 typical questions that you're probably going to see, or very similar at least, on the JLPT N4 or N5 exam. So this book really awesome for JLPT prep here. Alright guys, so this is pretty much a wrap to the video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll try my best to include any titles to the books in the description box below, and maybe I'll also include timestamps in case you guys are curious about like which languages and books you want to kind of look into the video at least. Pretty long video, so I'll do that, and thanks so much for watching guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one here.